Welcome everyone. I am Dr. Ramya, second year PG in pharmacology. Today our topic is about treatment of osteoporosis. Before going directly into the treatment of osteoporosis, let's learn what are the principal hormone regulators which help in calcium metabolism, bone remodeling. As in previous class, Dr. Kiranmai has already told you about calcium metabolism and phosphorus metabolism. Let's talk about vitamin D and parathyroid hormones in this class. So the principal hormone regulators of bone mineral homeostasis, that is calcium metabolism and bone remodeling, are parathyroid hormone, vitamin D, calcitonin, fibroblast growth factors. The other hormones such as thyroid hormones, insulin, growth hormones, androgens, estrogens, and glucocorticoids, they influence calcium and phosphorus homeostasis and bone metabolism, but they are considered as secondary regulators. The principal regulators are only these four: parathyroid hormone, vitamin D, calcitonin, and fibroblast growth factors. The primary target tissues for the secondary regulators are bone, kidneys, and intestines. So the level of calcium in plasma is regulated by parathyroid hormone and calcitonin. Okay. When there is low level of serum, when there is low plasma calcium levels, they stimulate the parathyroid hormone release, which in turn increases the osteoclasts. Osteoclasts are the cells which break down the bone processing, that is bone resorption. Because of this bone resorption, there is release of calcium and phosphates from bone into the blood. So serum calcium levels are increased. I'll explain again. A low plasma calcium levels, that is hypocalcemia, this leads to the activation of parathyroid hormone release, which increases bone resorption by stimulating the osteoclast. Osteoclasts are cells which help in the breakdown of the bone. In the bone tissues, they release calcium and phosphates from bone matrix into the blood. This parathyroid hormone, it also enhances the reabsorption of calcium from glomerular filtrate through renal tubules back into the blood. The another effect of parathyroid hormone on kidney is it promotes formation of hormone calcitriol, that is 1,2,5 dihydroxycholecalciferol or 1,2,5 dihydroxy vitamin D3. This is nothing but an active form of a vitamin D3. Calcitriol is active form of vitamin D3. This calcitriol, it induces the differentiation in the gut, that is in the enterocyte differentiation in the intestine, which in turn it increases the absorption of calcium. So vitamin D is necessary for the absorption of calcium. So all these three are interrelated: calcium, vitamin D, and parathyroid hormone. Okay. The synthesis of calcitriol is also regulated by parathyroid hormone. As I've told, all these three are interrelated. The net result is increase in the serum calcium levels and decrease in the serum phosphate levels. So one thing you have to remember is when there is increase in serum calcium levels, there is decrease in serum phosphate levels. That is, they are inversely proportional. So what is parathyroid hormone? There are 4 parathyroid glands which are located posterior to the thyroid gland. So the thyroid gland, that's principal cells, these parathyroid gland cells, they secrete parathyroid hormone. So When there is low plasma calcium levels, it stimulates parathyroid release, which in turn stimulates, that is, increase in the osteoclast number, which leads to bone resorption or bone breakdown, which leads to bone resorption, that is nothing but osteoporosis. Parathyroid hormone has multiple effects on bone to influence calcium and phosphate metabolism. Firstly, parathyroid hormone, it increases the activity and number of osteoclasts, that is the cells which are responsible for bone resorption. So this stimulation of osteoclast is neither a direct effect nor a simple process. So both resorption and bone formation are regulated by parathyroid hormone. But the net effects is that it's excess of parathyroid hormone, that is, it causes bone resorption. Actually, parathyroid hormone in low or in physiological levels or in intermittent doses, it causes bone formation without stimulating bone resorption. So both bone formation and both bone resorption are carried out by parathyroid hormone only, but mainly it causes, and in increased levels it causes bone resorption. So this finding, it is led to the recent trials of recombinant parathyroid hormone for the treatment of osteoporosis. Okay, this is about parathyroid hormone, how it is related to calcium, increase in serum calcium levels. Whenever there is increase in serum calcium levels, it is due to the bone resorption, that is, calcium from the bone is released into the serum, you can call. Coming to vitamin D. Vitamin D, as you all know, it is a fat soluble vitamin which is present in a very few foods, and it is also available in dietary products. So vitamin D is the name it is given to two related substances called cholecalciferol, that is vitamin D3, and ergocalciferol, that is vitamin D2. Vitamin D3, it is produced in the skin from 7-dehydrocholesterol by the action of UV light from the sun rays. As you all know, vitamin D, it is synthesized from the skin, which absorbs the UV light from the sun. As you all know, from if you you might have heard, like, if you sit in the sun for morning 10 to afternoon 3 p.m., you can receive vitamin D from the sun rays. Vitamin D2, it is derived from vegetable sources. So the primary source of vitamin D3 in human is not dietary, but it is a UV photoconversion to vitamin D3 in skin. Okay, ergocalciferol, vitamin D2, it is used in commercial vitamin formation and in dairy products. Vitamin D3, it is a prohormone and is not biologically active, but it is metabolized to its active metabolites by liver and kidney. So liver is a major site for vitamin D metabolism. Excess vitamin D, it can be stored. It is excess vitamin D which is present in the body, it is stored in fat and adipose tissue. So this is how it is metabolized from the sun. When it is received by the skin, 7-dehydrocholesterol is converted to cholecalciferol, that is vitamin D3 in the liver. So dietary intake of vitamin D3 and vitamin D2 by fish, meat, or any supplements, in the liver it is converted into 25 hydroxy vitamin D3. From there it gets metabolized in the kidney to 1,2,5 dihydroxy vitamin D3. So it maintains the calcium balance in the body. Coming to osteoporosis. What is osteoporosis? Porosis, like porosis, form of the osteo. What is osteo? Bone. So bone becomes into porous forms because of the bone resorption, that is release of calcium from the bones causes bone resorption. Osteoporosis, it is defined as abnormal loss of bone predisposing to the fractures. Easy fractures are the main results of osteoporosis. It is most common in postmenopausal women. Postmenopausal women means in women whom the periods are stopped. Postmenopausal women, and also it occurs in men. Osteoporosis is most commonly associated with loss of gonadal function, as in menopause. It can also occur as an adverse effect of long-term administration of glucocorticoids or any other drugs. Coming to primary osteoporosis. What is it? It is a pathological unbalancing of bone resorption and formation, which leads to persistent deficits of bone mass, that is bone density decreases and bone resorption occurs. Generally, this is seen in normal aging process, that every person after 70 years will have mild to moderate osteoporosis. So there is also an association between the presence of two hormones, that is estrogen and progesterone. So what does estrogen do? Estrogen, they regulate the osteoclast. As I have already told, what are osteoclasts? They break down the bone. They are the main reason for the bone resorption. So estrogen, it regulates the osteoclast that break down bone, and progesterone controls the osteoblast. Osteoblasts are the cells which help for the formation of new bone. So estrogen and progesterone are also associated in this osteoporosis. Primary osteoporosis is most common form of disease in postmenopausal osteoporosis and in senile osteoporosis. Senile osteoporosis is which occurs in old age. Secondary osteoporosis, that is because of other diseases. When other diseases leads to osteoporosis, it is called a secondary osteoporosis. So the medical conditions which result in secondary osteoporosis include like serious kidney failure, where the conversion of vitamin D cannot be possible because of this. Then Cushing's disease, liver impairment. Vitamin D metabolism is mostly seen in the liver, so liver impairment may also result in this. Anorexia nervosa and bulimia. What are these? Anorexia nervosa is the patient doesn't eat food. He will not even feel hungry also. Even if he feels hungry, he will not eat. Bulimia is, these two are psychological conditions in patients, generally in depressed patients or any maniac patients. Bulimia is even if they eat excessive food in bulimia, like binge eating, then they induce vomiting. Whatever they eat, they vomit. They themselves induce vomiting. So in these conditions, this results into the malnutrition. So calcium intake, dietary intake is less. So ultimately, this may lead to osteoporosis. Similarly, rheumatoid arthritis, malabsorption syndromes, multiple sclerosis, scurvy, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Secondary osteoporosis can also have hormonal causes like hyperparathyroidism. They increase the activity of the parathyroid gland. Hyperthyroidism, which leads to the excessive secretion of thyroid glands. Diabetes, hypercortisolism, thalassemia, leukemia, metastatic bone diseases. All these hormonal conditions, they lead to osteoporosis. Medications or chemicals which cause osteoporosis are like cigarette smoking, corticosteroid therapy, alcohol abuse, lithium, aluminium, barbiturates, antacids containing aluminium. All these, when these will result in osteoporosis only if it is used in a long-term basis or toxicity may lead to osteoporosis. So this is how an osteoporosis bone looks. This is a normal bone. This is an osteoporosis bone. See, it is more porous form. Coming to signs and symptoms, osteopenia. It is a term which is used when your bones are weaker than the normal. This is the hallmark symptom of osteoporosis. Other than that, we have back pain, which is caused by a fracture or collapsed vertebra. Loss of height over time. You might have seen in old people who live in villages and all, they bend forward. In some people, you may even observe, if you have been seeing them for a long time, you might have observed that their height will be little shortened. And a stooped a stooped posture, that is, they'll bend forward, and they have easily breakable bones. Recurrent fractures occurs. Coming to treatment of osteoporosis, first we'll talk about hormonal agents which affect the calcium homeostasis. Why we are talking about calcium homeostasis? This is the thing which ultimately leads to the which explains about the osteoporosis or bone resorption. So firstly, we'll talk about estrogens. Estrogens, they prevent the accelerated bone loss and can increase the bone density in postmenopausal women. Okay, they can prevent the further bone loss, but cannot restore the bone which is already lost. Okay, they prevent the further bone loss. Estrogens reduce the bone resorption actions of parathyroid hormone also. They increase the level of calcitriol in blood. Estrogens, they have the direct effects on bone remodeling by causing apoptosis of the osteoclast. That is, self-destruction of the osteoclast. What I told, when the number of osteoclasts increase, they lead to the bone resorption. That is, the function of the osteoclast is bone resorption. That is breakdown of bone. So when osteoclast increase, it leads to bone resorption. So what does the estrogen do? They cause the apoptosis, that is cell death of osteoclast. The increase in blood calcitriol levels are due to parathyroid hormone, and decreased calcium and phosphate levels. Phosphates are seen. So estrogens are mainly used in postmenopausal osteoporosis. Androgens, coming to androgens, calcium excretion is reduced by androgens. Calcium excretion from bones, it is reduced by androgens. And previously, androgens were used for the treatment of osteoporosis. Coming to non-hormonal agents affecting calcium homeostasis. So bisphosphonates. Bisphosphonates are the drugs of choice, or you can call the only main important treatment for osteoporosis, or first line treatment for osteoporosis are bisphosphonates. Bisphosphonates are synthetic pyrophosphate derivatives which inhibit osteoclast mediated bone resorption. That is, they inhibit the osteoclast. Okay, the bisphosphonates, they inhibit the osteoclastic resorption of bones by binding to a hydroxyapatite crystals of bone. The bisphosphonates analogs, they have different substitutions in the clinical practice. When osteoclasts, they attach to the bone matrix during the resorption process, these bisphosphonates are released from the bone, which are internalized by endocytosis into the osteoclast to accelerate their apoptosis. That is, these as I've told, bisphosphonates are released into the bone when these osteoclasts are attached to the bone matrix. Then they cause the apoptosis of the osteoclast. So the number of osteoclasts will obviously be reduced. Bisphosphonates also inhibit the release of interleukins, IL-6, to suppress the differentiation of osteoclast precursors. So the net effect is inhibition of osteoclast mediated resorption and the promotion of bone remodeling by increasing in the bone density. So bone resorption is decreased and bone density will also be increased. The only amino bisphosphonates are risedronate and alendronate, which have been found to block the mevalonate synthesis that appears to be critical for osteoclast survival. This mevalonate synthesis, because of this mevalonate synthesis only, the osteoclast, they undergo apoptosis and the number of osteoclast is decreased. On the other hand, statins also block mevalonate synthesis and are reported to promote bone formation, indicating that inhibition of mevalonate synthesis may constitute on the other approach towards the management of osteoporosis. Coming to the first generation bisphosphonates, they include etidronate, clodronate and telludronate. They are less potent than any other bisphosphonates. Etidronate, it is least preferred bisphosphonate as its long-term use may lead to osteomalacia. It is more preferred for treating Paget's disease and ectopic ossification. Telludronate, it orally can be used to treat the osteoporosis and Paget's disease. Coming to second generation bisphosphonates, these drugs are 100 times more potent than the first generation. They include amino bisphosphonates like alendronate, formidronate, and ibandronate. Alendronate, it can be given 10 mg per day or 70 mg per week orally on empty stomach. Ibandronate can be given in a dose of 2.5 mg per day or 150 mg per month orally. IV bisphosphonates are also available for people, for patients who cannot tolerate oral bisphosphonates. Famidronate, it can be given IV doses of 30 to 60 mg by slow infusion in 0.9% saline every 2 to 6 months. Zolondronate can also be given IV in doses of 2.5 mg per kg. Coming to third generation bisphosphonates, they include risedronate, which can be given oral and IV, zolondronate, oxydronate, neridronate. Neridronate is again amino bisphosphonate. The third generation bisphosphonates are 1,000 to 10,000 times more potent than the first generation bisphosphonates. Bisphosphonates, they are commonly used to treat osteoporosis, to reduce fractures and to treat hypercalcemia, which is due to malignancy. A combination of bisphosphonates with calcitonin is more effective in treating osteoporosis and Paget's disease. So adequate amount of calcium intake with vitamin D should also be maintained. Oral bioavailability of bisphosphonates is poor. So food decreases absorption, and so they should always be taken on empty stomach with full glass of water. Oral bioavailability is less, so it should be taken on empty stomach as food decreases the absorption. Adverse effects of bisphosphonates include gastric irritation, nausea, chest pain, hoarseness of voice, erosive esophagitis, particularly in patients with hiatus hernia, and gastroesophageal reflux. Adverse effects of bisphosphonates. Sorry, there is a disconnection in the middle. So the adverse effects are gastric irritation, nausea, chest pain, hoarseness of voice, erosive esophagitis, particularly in patients with hiatus hernia and gastroesophageal reflux, decreased renal functions, and GERD and peptic ulcer are main contraindications. Irritation due to GERD can be reduced by taking the drug with glass of water and remaining either upright, that is in a standing or a straight position, or in an ambulatory condition for 60 minutes. Flu-like symptoms are common with IV infusion. Patients receiving higher doses of bisphosphonates are for longer period are those who are receiving high doses of zoledronate for hypercalcemia of malignancy, may develop osteonecrosis of jaw, but not with therapeutic doses of bisphosphonates. Coming to other non-hormonal agents affecting calcium homeostasis. These are selective estrogen receptor modulators. These are non-steroidal synthetic agents whose activities on estrogen receptors are tissue selective. Example, raloxifene. It is currently being used for the treatment of postmenopausal osteoporosis. It is better estrogenic agent in bone and reduces the vertebral fractures for about 30 to 50%. Reduction in osteoclast action is also seen with raloxifene. Coming to calcimimetics. Recently, calcium sensing receptors, they have been identified on parathyroid gland, which regulate the parathyroid hormone secretion. So Sincalcet, it is a calcium mimetic which blocks the parathyroid hormone secretion, and it is approved for the treatment of secondary hyperparathyroidism, in chronic renal failure, and for the treatment of the parathyroid hormone releasing parathyroid carcinoma. Adverse effects include hypocalcemia. Strontium renylate, it blocks the differentiation of osteoclasts and also promotes their apoptosis and thus prevents bone resorption. This is the mechanism almost by all the bisphosphonates. It also promotes bone formation. It is being used in European countries now in recently to treat the osteoporosis, as it significantly reduces the risk of spine and hip fractures. Side effects of strontium renylate in therapeutic doses are very rare. Coming to fluorides, they are well known for prophylaxis of dental caries generally, but its efficacy to prevent osteoporosis, it is debatable because of its toxicity and dose dependent effect on bone. In high doses, fluoride, it causes increase, that is, it increases the risk of all kinds of fractures in high doses. Initially, it makes bone denser, but later stage, if the process continues, the bone, it loses the biomechanical strength. Coming to non-pharmacological treatments, several natural interventions, they promote the increase in the bone health. They include the sufficient consumption of bone supportive nutrients through healthy eating and nutritional supplements such as calcium, magnesium, vitamin D, boron, strontium, and vitamin K. Some calcium rich fruits which help to load up minerals are apricots, kiwi, berries, pineapples, lychee, and papaya. Apart from dietary intake from dairy products like milk, butter, or ghee, from these products, apart from those products and fruits, weight bearing aerobic activities which involve doing exercise on your feet with your bones, which support your weight. Exercises like walking, dancing, low impact aerobics, elliptical training machines, stair climbing, and gardening. You can never regain the bone density with these exercises which you had in your youth, but you can prevent the rapidly thinning of bones even after your diagnosis. Coming to nursing care, you all have to educate the patient the relationship between the osteoporosis and calcium and vitamin D levels as a well-target dietary amounts for calcium and vitamin D. That is, you have to educate the patient, like how they cause the bone resorption and osteoporosis, and you have to advise them to take more dietary form of these supplements. You have to inform the patient about the sources of calcium and vitamin D. People of age above 18, they require at least 1000 mg of calcium per day, while women above 50 years and men above 70 years require 1200 mg of calcium intake. You have to encourage the patients to stop smoking, limit alcohol intake, and to improve exercise and physical activity. If needed, you have to refer the patient to the dietitian. So this is all about osteoporosis and treatment of osteoporosis. Thank you.